National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
So let's go ahead and get started, guys. My name is Karen Anderson, and I serve as the Education Programs Coordinator for the National Federation of the Blind. And we are really excited that you joined us for this Zoom lesson. Making Apple Smiles is definitely one of my favorite little Bell activities. And I'm pretty sure that I was at the first Bell Academy where it happened. So I'm excited about this. With me, we have our presenter, Eric Guillory. And Eric, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Guillory, and I'm the Director of Youth Services here at the Louisiana Center for the Blind, which is a National Federation of the Blind Training Center in Ruston, Louisiana.
Fabulous. So this is just one of the many distance education resources that the National Federation of the Blind is putting out. The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future or your kid's future. And you can live the life that you want. Blindness doesn't have to be the thing that holds you back, and it's not the thing that holds you back. So we're putting out as quite a few education resources to keep students and families engaged in this interesting time of social distancing. So I'm going to let Eric take it away with the lesson, and I hope you guys enjoy. And feel free to chime in and ask questions either in the chat or unmute yourself and ask questions that way.
All right. Thank you so much, Karen. We appreciate you so much and all the hard work that you and your team do from Baltimore to make these lessons possible. And good morning, everybody. One of the things I sometimes get told I do is talk too quickly. So if that ends up being the case, please say, hey, you, slow down, or send a message in the chat or whatever. And I know Karen will be monitoring that for sure. With me off camera is my indomitable better half, Crystal Guillory, and she is serving not only as a fantastic videographer, but also as someone who can help me stay on track. Absolutely. So we're going to be making Apple Smiles. And I'm Director of Youth Services for the training center here in Louisiana, but no matter whether you're a child or a tween, a teen, a youth, a young adult, or an oldster like me, food is not only a necessity, but a source of enjoyment, camaraderie. So we'll get started here momentarily. Just as print is literacy for sighted people, Braille is literacy for blind people. We like to say that Braille rocks in the National Federation of the Blind, and it does, because it gives our students and people like me, blind people, literacy. And so I'm going to review materials and kind of discuss the materials that you'll need for this lesson and some possible adaptations to those materials. And then we're going to go ahead and do the lesson. I appreciate your kind patience and forbearance with me as I do it. I am definitely an enthusiastic consumer of food. I'm a passable cook, so but we're going to have a great time. And in this time of social distancing, we know folks are going through so many adversities, and so this lesson it emulates a smile, and we hope it puts a smile on your face and your kids' faces, your students' faces today as we talk about this. And so let's start with the materials that we're going to need. So you'll notice, for those of you who happen to have sight, you'll notice that I have learning shades on. And so for people who have some usable vision, learning shades help to reinforce non-visual skills and to help learners trust in the use of those non-visual skills. And so that's why I'm wearing learning shades, because I often tell people one of the common questions that some of us who have usable vision get asked is, well, how much can you see? And a response that I've taken to using that I really like to use is, I see just enough to get myself in trouble visually. With a cane, without a cane, I get myself in trouble, either myself, or I pose a danger to either myself or others without a cane. And so I'm wearing learning shades as a result of vision, which sometimes comes in useful, but often gives me information that it turns out to be misinformation. So apples, we have, of course, our apple here. And so unlike certain baking shows, etc., any variety will do. So peanut butter or a substitute hypoallergenic spread. So almond butter or some substitute in that regard. We know that peanut allergies are rather common. So you know your student, you know your family dynamic. And so again, whatever spreadable solution, KG, I guess Nutella would work just as well. I love me some Nutella, but we don't have any today, but I do have it at home. I think they've hidden it from me so they can all eat it themselves, which is probably smart. All right, let's see. But we do have our peanut butter here, and it's one awesome thing about this lesson is that it's targeted, again, for students ages 6 to 12, but it fosters family togetherness for kids and cooks of all ages. And so one cool thing, one cool concept is the clock face. So my peanut butter is at about 1:30-ish o'clock to me. And so again, having the idea of the clock face, the cutting board here is at 12 o'clock for me. So my apple, again, at 12 o'clock. So that's just one of the many myriad skills that organically present themselves in a lesson like this. Mini-marshmallows, we have those miniature marshmallows here. Probably hard to see on camera, but anyway, those are at about 3 o'clock for me. The cutting board, as we discussed, is at 12 o'clock. Spreading knife is on the list of materials. You'll notice for this lesson, I'm a guy of simple tastes, okay? So I have a giant jar of peanut butter here with a spoon in it. And so because spreading knives can work wonderfully well, but so can the backs of spoons. And so this jar of peanut butter happens to be for yours truly. Yes, it's a huge jar of peanut butter, and I will not eat it all in one day. But again, you know your family dynamic. You could have a much smaller jar of peanut butter for your child or your student. If you're at school, you could have peanut butter reserved in a bowl and use a spoon or a spreading knife. You have to do whatever you think best for your family dynamic or for your school dynamic. So in this case, we're making it easy, and the spoon is chilling in the jar of peanut butter, and that's the way we're going to proceed with this. The apple slicer with the built-in core. So we have two different models here. This first one is a Pampered Chef style core slicer, and so sharp blades. It obviously does a nice job, and it's very functional. And so for older students or adults, certainly no problems with using this core slicer. However, we have a second model, which is less expensive and more functional for little hands. And this is, again, the same concept as a core slicer. And you can probably tell I don't work for the Home Shopping Network, but I hope that I'm in frame. And so this core has larger handles and a bit easier to grip for smaller hands or for those who may have some additional motoric involvements. So that is our apple core slicer. We have a discard bowl, and that's at about 10 o'clock-ish, 10 o'clock to me, and that's where we're going to put our apple core and napkins or anything else that we want to discard later. And so again, a plate on which to build the craft. I'm going to build here on the cutting board in front of me, but we do have this plate that we're going to use to set aside the apple slices that we're not using until we use them. So, and it says Braille recipe cards. So here, for me, I embossed this lesson for my own use on a sheet of paper. However, again, knowing your family dynamic and your school arrangements, you may want to have individualized recipe cards, particularly if you're working in a group or engaged in with little hands, again, that might need one-step directions and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and, just for expediency, read through the process, and then I'm going to talk through the process. And afterward, we're going to discuss some differentiation of instruction for more beginner or advanced students. Any questions so far, though, before we just quickly review the process and then actually get down to starting it? All right. Ruston has many trains, and you're going to hear, the city of New Orleans is not one of them, but it pops that song into my head. anyway, that train mercifully was fast, so we're all good. All right, let's review the process and then get down to it. So the first one says cut apples into wedges about 1/2 of an inch thick. So I know not every family or every school may have an apple core. I will tell you, I love this thing. It makes my life so much more simplistic. You wash your apple, slice it, and then either, you know, do what we're doing today or just get your chomp on with individual apple slices. And I know they make these for pineapples and so many different slicing appliances in the kitchen. Resources of convenience. It is good for students, particularly as they get older, to know how to slice an apple using the old school method of a knife, because again, one is not always going to have to expect that they're going to have an apple core chilling in every location that they go to. So it's good to learn that problem solving skill. One of the things that we're finding out as a result of the COVID crisis is students are talking with us. Our students are still here and doing a lot of distance education. And so one of the things that they're learning and discussing is that problem solving is so important. We're having to do things in ways and solve problems in ways that we might not have even thought of 2 months ago, or thought that we would have to implement 2 months ago. And so that is stretching us as humans and making us stronger. And we're going to come out at the other end of this crisis with more solutions as a result. So slicing the apple, and then on one wedge, spread the peanut butter or your other hypoallergenic solution. Line up the tiny marshmallows on top of the peanut butter with the flat ends up. We're going to do that. Also, it was suggested to me that if folks don't have tiny marshmallows, then, you know, perhaps raisins would be a good substitute. And then you can discuss dentistry. Like, look at this smile. This person is smiling, but they've got rotten teeth, you know, because the raisins look rotten. Now, KG, you might chime in on this or might not. It just occurred to me that you could also use one of my favorite foods, butterscotch chips, and you could talk about yellowing teeth. Like, okay, your teeth aren't rotten yet, but if you don't start brushing and flossing and water picking, you're gonna be making a raisin smile before you know it.
Very true.
All right, good. I got some props for that. That's awesome. Next, spread peanut butter on another wedge and put that on top of the marshmallow wedge to make a smile. So your stack essentially is going to be an apple, and then peanut butter, and then the marshmallow, then peanut butter again, and followed by your second slice of apple. And so again, a caution to beware of food allergies. So let me set aside my Braille recipe. Again, we're going to come back, and I'm going to read some more toward the end with regard to differentiation of instruction. So let me go sanitize one more time, because I read a meme the other day that said 3 of my top hobbies turned out to be going to a restaurant, going to non-essential businesses, and touching my face. Well, I just touched my face out of habit. I'm going to go sanitize real quickly, and then we're going to get to it. Give me about 30 seconds. Okay, thank you very much for your patience, everyone. I appreciate that. I know that we all are used to washing our hands 953 times per day, so you know where I'm coming from there, and it's important. So the first step is to core our apple, and core and slice. Again, I'm not going to use the knife method here. We're going to go ahead and use the apple core. We want to encourage students to stand up and use their body weight and their shoulders and arms to make a straight down cut through the apple. So for those who are watching visually, in the center of the core is a round hole, and that's where you're going to place the hole on top of the apple such that they line up, and then you can get a good slice, a straight vertical slice. And both of these cores that I have today cut 8 apple slices, and I'm guessing that's pretty standard. Okay, so we've got our apple core lined up over the apple in the correct centered spot. And so then I'm just going to push as straight vertically down toward the ground as possible, making sure, of course, that my hands are completely clear of the blades. Okay, so once the apple has been sliced, the first thing, and it kind of started tipping over on me, so we'll see what happens here. Anyway, I want to pull the core out. The core is, there we go. These skills may be part of the expanded core curriculum, but this is a core of a different type. All right. That is a little bit of blindness field humor, which may or may not be appreciated because you guys are on mute. All right, and so then we're gonna remove the 8 apple slices, And students, again, counting concepts for younger learners, differentiation of slice size. For instance, this small slice that I'm holding in my left hand to the right side of your picture is far different, unfortunately, than this larger slice in my other hand. And so again, I'm going to just explore all of these slice sizes. This one is all nice and crooked. Apparently I promise you, when I pre-game this, the slices are so much nicer. But again, that's right. It's a learning opportunity. Yep. Even a piece of the core got hung up on one of these slices. This apple was a defiant sort of smiling. It was like some students I know. All right, so these slices are quite mangled pretty badly, actually. Wow. I may.
See what the second
Yeah, I was going to say I might go ahead and core that other one. It can't be any worse than this first one. So I hope you're laughing at me and with me at the same time, ladies. So we're going to go ahead and try to clear as much of this detritus out of the way and get the second apple. Let's see, there we go. Okay. We did have two. The indomitable KG made sure that I had two of these ready to rock and roll, and I'm glad she did. We're going to hope that, some of the core piece still hung up in the circle. This apple made its mark on the world, man. All right. It's still edible, even if we don't use it for the smiles. It's still an apple a day, even a defiant apple a day still hopefully keeps the doctor away at all times. Okay, so we've got our stem. I'm trying to center this as much as possible because I suspect I probably did a little bit of a sloppy job last time. But again, this is a learning opportunity for you and your coworkers, AKA students and children. Let's try again. Let's see how these came out. Again, the core is listing badly toward me. Hello, core. But we're going to find out how bad these are or how good these are. Slightly better, perhaps. So some of these are coming. Some of these are coming out better than others. That's okay. We're going to reserve these slices off to the side, and then we'll be able to choose ones that work well for our project. And again, it's a learning opportunity. It's what teachable moments are all about. So we're gonna be good to rock and roll. Some of these slices are spilling over off my plate, but that doesn't matter because
okay. We wipe down the counter.
Exactly. We sanitize everything when we're all said and done. And this is edible no matter what. And I have a 14-year-old who I'm sure will be happy to polish those off for me. All right. Wipe my hands quickly, and we're going to go ahead and start with the spreading process. So a little bit of commentary on this. As I said in the reading of the materials, I'm choosing to use a spoon. And again, you can use a spreading knife. You will see, and this is why sanitization is so important, COVID-19 or not, always, because your most readily accessible tools are your hands. And so again, that's why it's super important. This smile that I create is going to be just for my own consumption. So you will see, just for verification of the spreading of peanut butter, etc. It's going to get on my hands. It's going to happen. It's going to get on your hands, your kids' hands. But that's why sanitization is important. And again, you know your student and family dynamics best, so you know who may have some issues with regard to the spreading of germs or various other involvements. So just use your best judgment when it comes to that. So let's try and select a couple of sort of similar slices so that we can rock and roll with these. Let's see. Some of them are less kind than others. Yeah, this is not, no, I was going to say. You could use these two because these are fairly similar in size. Close enough. So these are not 100% the same size, but they're close enough. And so so this would be the inside of the smile, but the idea is going to be to spread peanut butter and then place marshmallows on the skin side, which the peel side, if you will, which is facing the camera. And then so you'll have apple, peanut butter, marshmallows, peanut butter, apple, and you'll have a smile. So that is my goal. And so let's see what happens. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and do this on the cutting board. at this point. And so we will start with peanut butter. Again, I'm going to get some on a spoon, and a generous amount is not a bad thing. It may overlap some, but that's okay because it's peanut butter. It's good. All right, so just to kind of spread this out as much as we can, and again, it's going to be a little bit of a messy process, especially because I'm doing it, but that's okay. And I'm using the back of the spoon to try to spread and verify and check. Again, thank you for watching, and hopefully you're like, dude, this guy is not Emeril Lagasse or Bobby Flay or anybody like that, and you're right. All right, so some peanut butter on the side. I'm gonna get a little bit more for one of the ends that's not quite coated. Okay, and yeah, you're right. I wanna make sure we have our coating toward the peeling side of the apple, if you will, toward that skin side of the apple. And some may even overlap on the outside. Okay, I'm gonna set this one aside, and then since my hands are already peanut buttery, I'm gonna continue on with this second apple slice and get a nice hunk of peanut butter, if you will. And again, I think we have more than enough here, but that's okay. Because again, part of the fun is, my dad used to say when we were kids and he'd get us to do various chores, he'd say soap is cheap. Okay, I don't know if soap is still cheap, but that was one of his most beloved sayings when he would ask us to get in the dirt and do various things. That's a whole other life skills video. All right, so we have our 2 apple slices. Let me put my spoon back where it belongs, and let me go sanitize again, and I shall return. Okay, I am back for better or worse. Here I am. Okay, so now the idea is to get marshmallows and to finalize this project by making a smile. And one of the cool things too is you can talk with your students and have them do their own creation. With apples, it's gonna be 4 or 5 marshmallow slices across, but you know, students might wanna do different things, and maybe you do a combo of marshmallows, raisins, and butterscotch, or maybe you do just marshmallows and you have some missing. Maybe you have, you know, a gap tooth smile, or whatever the creation might be. So I'm gonna take this first apple slice, hello, and put some marshmallows on it and see what happens. So I know from past experience that it's gonna take probably 4 or 5, and some students are gonna have little hands and may need some help picking up little objects as well. If you have a student with some motoric involvement, or just some concerns with regard to grasping and pinching, etc., then again, you know your student best, and you can provide that verbal prompting and or that prompting as you need to with regard to helping them pick up these tiny marshmallows, raisins, butterscotch chips, pepperoni slices, or whatever else. Okay, pepperoni. I'm thinking about pizza. I'm sorry. All right, got to bear with me. I did not say anchovies. That's good. Don't chop up tiny anchovies and put this unless you do really like that. And if you do, please don't tell me. All right, so we're putting these marshmallows. These happen to be wide apple slices. We're putting these as close to the peel side as possible. So I hope you guys can see that. And let me do one more, I guess. This one may or may not stick as well, but that's okay. That could be a problem too. So again, KG, do you think they can see?
Yes, now that you've held it up. Yeah.
Okay. So we have our peel side, our skin side with the teeth in place, thanks to Oral-B toothbrush. No, they do not sponsor us or anything like that. All right, so then we take our second smiling part, and we're gonna invert this and place it on top of the teeth section. And hopefully it will come together, but if not, there are some alternatives you can do. So this is gonna, so you can face the peels too, the peel side toward the sky, and hope that these marshmallows stay in place.
Adjust your teeth.
And adjust your teeth accordingly. This is not at all perfect. I'm sure it's like a snaggle tooth smile, right?
It's beautiful.
Yeah, she's laughing. I know it must look horrible. But that's okay, because while this one may not look great, it tastes wonderfully. And let me dry my hands really quickly. As any celebrity chef that you've probably seen has done, we prepared a sample ahead of time so that you can see one that actually both tastes good and is photogenic. Let me grab that. Stand by. So this one is much better. Let me get to where I need to be. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hold the plate steady and turn the smile toward you. KG, do you think they can see that?
I do.
All right, wonderful. And so this is a much more telegenic smile, if you will. But the one that I did here on live Zoom is, while not necessarily fantastic looking, the idea is not to be fantastic looking. The idea is to reinforce so many of those skills that we talked about earlier: spatial awareness, culinary awareness, the social interaction, turn taking, all of those myriad things that happen in a lesson like this. I do want to talk about, before we open it up for questions or discussion, I do want to talk about some differentiation of instruction. So one of the things that you could do for more advanced learners is give them the smile, okay? Give them the already assembled creation without the recipe, and see if they can reverse engineer it and figure out what the heck this is and how did you make it? What materials do you need, etc. So that's a more advanced concept. For more beginning learners, you might use hand over hand, hand under hand assistance to help with those more beginning learners, where your hand is under theirs helping with the process. Also providing verbal prompts as far as if a student is still learning Braille or perhaps needs more task analyzed step-by-step directions, you might provide more verbal prompts than you would to a more advanced learner. So that. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, indeed. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about when we did our pregame was the concept of storage, and how, again, that's another kitchen concept, another life concept. So I'm holding in my hand a bag of marshmallows, and this is where the tiny marshmallows for our smile came from. And so one of the things we talked about was, and for our lesson, we placed them on a plate. You could do that in a bowl, at home or at school, depending if you're working on expanded core concepts as an educator. You could have the student work with you to open the bag and to parse out various marshmallows. You can make math problems out of it, like if there are 3 of you working on this project and you project that you're going to each need about 5 marshmallows. Again, that reinforces math skills. Eventually, though, it's going to also, these marshmallows are also going to be stored at some point. And so talking about various storage solutions, whether that be a chip clip type situation, Tupperware, the use of zip bags. So any number of ways that families may choose to store marshmallows. Again, we're not going to show you all the cleanup process, but of course, when we're done with this lesson, we are going to have to sanitize everything, including the cutting board and the counters and all that good stuff. And so again, that's yet more instruction that you can have as educators and as families at home.
We also remove.
Good point. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so this jar of peanut butter, of course, like most do, came with a seal. And so again, there are some students who don't understand the removal or the placement even of a seal like that, a vacuum seal on jars like that for freshness, for storage, and all of that good stuff. So again, removing the seal on jars could be yet another concept that is either identified and begun for instruction for students, or for those who may struggle with it, who may have been exposed to it before but need additional practice. Then again, this is a ready-made time for them to practice. Questions, discussion, thoughts? We have our snaggletooth friend here, but it's okay, because I'm still going to get my chomp on, and I'm going to smile while I do that too. So it's going to be all good. Anybody?
We had somebody say in the chat that they're excited to do this with their students and their own daughter, which I think is really cool.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I did not develop this lesson, but those who wrote the NFB, the National Federation of the Blind BELL Academy curriculum did, and it's a marvelous lesson. It's my first time, as you can probably tell, actually implementing this, but it won't be my last. And so again, I'm appreciative of the opportunity and of the opportunity to connect with all of you as well. Thank you for tuning in.
Well, and there's 6 more classes.
Yeah.
From an app, not for you, but I'm saying at home, they want to practice some more, they still have the rest of the apple left.
Absolutely. I'm not going to build any more smiles right now, but this apple is still chilling here, these 2 apples. And so again, yeah, if in a typical 8-slice coring situation, you've got 6 more slices after you build your smile. So that's enough for 4 people to participate. So the more the merrier. And again, reinforcing skills like turn taking, sharing, personal space, and now especially with social distancing, that we really had to watch that. But all those skills, and plus, frankly, just hanging out with the family, hanging out with fellow students, and having a blast as well. You can turn on some tunes, and just it doesn't need to feel like a stern classroom type of situation. It needs to be fun, and it is. So yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? If not, Karen, I'll turn it back over to you, and I appreciate the time.
Awesome. Eric, thank you so much for presenting. And thank you all for coming to this National Federation of the Blind lesson from our NFB BELL Academy curriculum. I hope that we'll see you on future lessons. We're going to be doing a technology, sort of a tech time on Tuesday. And next Thursday at 11, we're going to have another interactive fun lesson like this. So stay tuned for that. You can find all of our distance education resources at nfb.org/resources/distance-education-resources, or you can go to nfb.org/COVID-19 and look for the distance education resources there. We're putting out something almost every day, so I hope you'll definitely check those out. If you have suggestions for lessons or even concepts that you would like to see how a blind person would do or teach, or if you're not sure how to do something, we would love to have you email us. You can email me at kanderson, that's ANDERSON, @nfb.org, or you can call me at 410-659-9314, extension 2243, and let me know what you would like to see. We want to make sure that the content that we're putting out is content that everybody finds valuable, and we know that there are a lot of resources that people are still looking for. So thanks for joining us, and I hope that we'll get to see you next week.